She is the founder and director of Elar Institute. I don't know if she's going to talk about that, but we can talk about that later at the little get-together. It's an organization dedicated to teaching emotional intelligence and fostering inclusion. And for the past 8 years, Tisse has worked with schools, companies, and individuals to develop structures and practices which lead to a higher level of personal and team effectiveness. Plus, she contains magic.
All right, we did all that work to pull up my face, and now I'm going to minimize it. Here we go. All right. So, good afternoon. I wanted to start off by just thanking all of you for being here today. So, who you are a group of people who are spending their Saturday in learning how to be better, like how to have wellness, how to be a better you. And I believe that each time that we invest in ourselves, our community benefits as a whole. So thank you for being who you are. Thank you for being here today. Oh, clicker, right. All right, so I'll start off with a little bit about me. My name is Tisse Mallon. I am the director of the Elar Institute. It's an organization that teaches emotional intelligence. A little bit about my background. I was born in Mexico City. I grew up in Chicago. I studied in Belfast, Northern Ireland. And now I've called Orlando home for the last 15 years, and I love it. This is the longest I've lived anywhere. Since I was a little kid, I've had two things. Number one is a profound fascination for people. And number two, an insatiable curiosity. Who, what, when, where, how come? What is it that makes us tick as human beings? What is it that makes us connect with one another? What is it that makes us want to jump out of bed in the morning? And the big one for me was, what's the meaning of life? So I've like this work of answering questions about us as people and as communities is something that I'm just totally crazy about. It's my passion. And whenever I'm not either teaching about that or learning more of that, I'm spending time with my other loves, which include my family, my friends, and Orlando's performing arts community. So enough about me. Let's dive in. So with a topic like positivity and optimism, I want to first put you at ease, because I don't want you to think that I'm here to pump you up and convince you to become kumbaya, dreaming, head in the sand, ostriches. All right, so you don't have to worry about that. I see this more as an opportunity for us to explore this together. And one of the best ways that I have found to explore things is to first acknowledge what gets in the way of that thing. And so I want to ask you, when it comes to positivity and optimism, what are your buts? What gets in the way?
You're actually asking?
I'm actually asking, yeah, like for real. Yeah, what gets in the way of positivity and optimism in the challenges that you face? Because really that's where it comes into play, right? Like the things we are already excited about, we don't need extra positivity and optimism. So it's really when we're hitting those challenges. Yeah. Shooting all over yourself, yes. What else?
External negativity.
So the influence of others. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Tailgaters.
Tailgaters? Yeah, so like little irritations in daily life. What else? Yes? Feeling like life is stopping you. Anything else? Yeah?
Uncertainties about handling something.
Yeah, like being insecure? Yeah? Fear? Yes? Self-sabotaging? Yeah, absolutely. Stress? Yeah, great. And so all of those are just really great examples of what gets in the way of positivity and optimism. When I started, just really thinking about, what gets in the way, for me, it boiled down to two things, really, right? Number one is our value of the truth, like how much we value being in reality. And number two, it's our desire to protect ourselves from future pain. So those are the ones we're going to address today, I think. Some of the other ones will get addressed within that, but those are the two that I'm focusing on today. So first of all, we want truth. I imagine sometimes when I'm talking about positivity and optimism, people with their little picket signs is I don't want to be lying to myself, right? I want the truth. So on a very fundamental level, our survival is based on our ability to tell what is real and what isn't. There is no part of us that desires a surprise when it comes to our understanding of life and the circumstance that we're dealing with, right? Notice that fake optimism, I feel like I want this particular outcome and I'm nervous because I feel there's a lot of evidence I'm not going to get it. Just telling myself it's going to be okay. But the pitch of your voice goes up and it feels gross because you're no, I don't really feel that. You want to really stay true to what's alive in you. Also notice that, and here's a funny thing, right? Each one of you individually, are the most objective person you know. Other people have opinions, other people have perspectives, but you, as the magical unicorn that you are, know the real reality. You just see life as it is. And so it's lost on us that we too have a perspective, that we too have opinions, that we don't have the ability to see things just as they are because they're being influenced by everything that's come before, by all the stories that are already in our minds. So I'd like to dive into a little bit of neuroscience. So you know how in various fields they use computer simulators? Computer simulators to learn how to fly an airplane or for spaceship missions or for car safety, yeah? Those computer simulators are essential to training for a successful mission. Well, our brains are the ultimate simulation machine. So our brains constantly are running through a variety of potential outcomes when it comes to just about anything we do. Everything from having dinner to deciding who to invite to a party to finding out what to do to make more money. And the goal is always finding the best way to achieve our desired outcome. So this simulator is running things constantly. And the problem is that simulator is not perfect. Whenever there's a computer simulator for things like flying an airplane, there's different data points, there's different conditions that are taken into account. But with humans, those simulators often go unobserved. They go unexamined, right? We don't check on them. So our simulation machines are running only on existing data, and it's really important to notice that. So what is this existing data? The existing data is our past experiences, it's our past knowledge, our past beliefs, it's everything that we've accumulated up to this point. So what that means is it will never account for new possibilities. It's stuck only with the old. So why is this a problem? So I've got like a little graph here to show you, right? So we've got all the knowledge in the universe in this big bar, right? And that, I'm being generous, I know, but if we take that orange part is the kind of information that we already know. So what are some things we know? We know how to tie our shoes, or we know how to drive a car, or we know how to speak English, right? So there's things that we know how to do. And then there's the things that we don't know. I know I don't know how to speak Chinese. I know that I don't know how to perform brain surgery. And then there's like this even bigger chunk of what? Yeah, like we're just totally unaware that there's a thing called something and like it exists out there. And that's the majority of what's out in life, right? So imagine, seeing as, you know, it's a room full of creatives. There was a time when you didn't know that Adobe products existed. And it wasn't even like, it wasn't in your list of things that you didn't know how to do. It was invisible to you. And so in life, that there's just so much of those things. All right, number 2, our simulation machine is habitual and it's based on detecting danger. So there's good news and there's bad news here. We'll start with the bad news. The bad news is that when it runs unconscious and it runs unexamined, it will focus on any potential fear or pain it finds, and it's going to prioritize that potential fear or pain over any potential benefit or opportunity. However, the good news is that since it is habitual, when we become conscious and we are able to shine a light on it, we have the power to shift it from simply detecting that potential pain or fear to also detecting those opportunities for joy and expansion. So basically just bringing consciousness to it allows us to get our choice back. We're able to notice what's happening. So here you go. For example, when presented the option to talk to people that I don't know at, some wellness event, I can either focus just on my social anxiety, or I can focus on the potential of making a new friend that truly aligns with my values, right? So being able to shift your focus. So while sometimes it's obvious that the best case scenario isn't based in reality, what we miss is that the worst case scenario isn't based in reality either. So pessimism is equally untrue as optimism. And now add to the fact that this whole real reality thing is a tricky bugger to put your finger on because of our perspective being so incredibly limited. And you start to realize that chasing the ultimate truth all the time might not be the best use of our efforts. All right, this brings us to the concern of protecting ourselves from future pain. So less pain, more happy, please. So the strategy that many people use is to lower their expectations or hopes, right? The thinking goes a little like this. If I don't get my hopes up, if I keep my expectations low and what I want to have happen doesn't happen, then maybe I won't feel so bad. I certainly won't feel as bad as if I had really hoped and wished for that particular outcome. So Tali Sharot is an optimism researcher, and she explains that being pessimistic actually doesn't soften the blow of bad news. So here's a quote from her book. Students who had low expectations of their performance on an undergraduate psychology exam felt just as bad when those expectations came true as students who expected to do well. So it's funny how sometimes we have like this perspective of our feelings as if they were ruled by gravity, right? As if our feelings, just like objects when dropped from a higher distance, would cause more destruction. And that's not the case. Our feelings are not ruled by gravity. There is not more destruction if our hopes are dropped from a higher place. The experience of sadness and disappointment of not having our preferred outcome is the same, whether our hopes were high to begin with or low. What's different, though, is our experience leading up to that outcome. So if you look at this bar, right, we have the time leading up and we have the outcome. And that first section right there, that's the part of the experience that we actually get to control. So negative expectations have the cost of making us feel worse while we're waiting for the outcome to happen. And studies suggest that the cost of negative expectations is greater than any benefit. So in taking a look at all of this emotional research, you know what? One thing that I found is the peak emotional state. You know what it is? Any guesses? Being in love. What else? No? Are you ready for it? The peak emotional state is anticipation. So anticipation is when our emotional state reaches the highest point. I want you to think about going out to dinner with friends, right? So we plan a dinner with our friends, right? And the moment that we begin planning it, the moment that it's in our heads, it becomes a reality. It becomes something that is destined to happen in our experience. And as that date and time grows closer, our level of anticipation increases. We start imagining the food that we're going to share, the conversations we might have, just like the fun. As we start getting ready for it, you know, we're getting dressed, like all that anticipation is building up. We're driving, we're feeling hungry, we're imagining how enjoyable it's going to be. Once we're there, like it may be fun, we might be enjoying ourselves, but we're like in it, right? And then as soon as the dinner is done, well, it's done. Right? So that's when it drops off. So the best experience of any event, oh my gosh, think about a kiss. It's always in the anticipation, that buildup, and we are robbing ourselves of it. So when we keep our expectations low, not only do we suffer the negative outcome itself, but we also suffer the whole time leading up to that negative outcome. So we're robbing ourselves of the best joy there is to experience, which is anticipation. One more thing. What we expect affects our behavior. So there are studies which have observed the effects of optimism in different situations. And forgive me, I'm going to read this part because this was all part of the research here. And I want to make sure to get it right. So one study examined a group of patients who had experienced heart attacks and were following a rehabilitation program. The researchers found that optimists exercised more and were more likely to reduce their body fat levels, thereby reducing their overall coronary risk. They were also more likely to take vitamins and eat low-fat diets. The result? Optimists lived longer. And the people who react to illness with passive acceptance of their own impending death, well, they die prematurely. The Army teaches soldiers to be optimistic because it makes them tougher and more resourceful. And just as a side note, when I read that, like that made me really happy because sometimes optimism is seen as not a strong trait, right? It seems like a wishy-washy, hopeful dreamer sort of attribute, and it's not. It's taught to the people who need resilience and perseverance and strength the most. So just believing you can become smarter and can become a better negotiator have both been shown to increase improvement. Another one, being socially optimistic, expecting people to like you, makes people like you more. Expecting a positive outcome from negotiations made groups more likely to come to a deal and to be happy with it. One more, optimistic salespeople are more successful, and testing revealed that the most optimistic agents actually sold fully 88% more than the most pessimistic ones. So here's the bottom line. The brain does not want the body to expend its resources unless we have a reasonable chance of succeeding. Our strength is not accessible to us if the brain does not believe in the outcome. The worst possible thing for humans is to expend all of our resources and fail. So if we do not believe we can make it, we will not get the resources we need to make it. The moment we believe, the gates are opened and a flood of energy is unleashed. So, both hope and despair are self-fulfilling prophecies. All right. So, that was the science behind positivity and optimism, but now what? Right? Like, what am I supposed to do with all that? I know that it would be nice, but how do I actually make that happen in my life? How can I take that on? So life is the opportunity to practice being, to practice thinking, and to practice doing that which we value. So if we were to choose to practice positivity and optimism, what would that look like? So here are 3 guidelines for practicing positivity and optimism. Number 1 is self-compassion. So the harder we are on ourselves, the less we are likely to believe in our capabilities. And the less we believe in our capabilities, the more we expect to fail. So it's important to interpret our setbacks as temporary and changeable. And it was said earlier, and it's so important. We have to be willing to pay attention to the voice in our head. What is it that we're telling ourselves? And we also must be willing to interrupt those conversations, which describe setbacks as permanent and unchangeable. So I'd like to, in my work, I've discovered that a lot of people don't really know what it's like to be self-compassionate. We don't know what to say to ourselves. And so I want to just guide you through a little bit of that. And this is general kind of blanket that you can use in any situation. So if you would please put your hand over your heart and close your eyes for a moment. And I want you to repeat to yourself in your own head, so quietly, the words that I'm about to offer. I'm on a journey. I don't have it all figured out, and that's okay. I'm doing the best I can, and that's enough. I am enough. We'll do it one more time. I'm on a journey. I don't have it all figured out, and that's okay. I'm doing the best I can, and that's enough. I am enough. All right, go ahead and open your eyes. I'd love to hear if does anybody have anything they would like to share from how that feels. I mean, the words were just given to you, but even just repeating it, did it have any effect for you? It felt true. Beautiful, yeah.
I felt like I was receiving permission to just be okay with it.
So the permission. Oh man, that's so beautiful because yes, sometimes we walk around as if we need permission for things, and what we don't realize is we can give ourselves that permission. So just, offering those words, like all the wisdom that you need to thrive and just enjoy life is already within you. But we don't offer ourselves our own wisdom. So the more that we can reaffirm that. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you.
It shook me because I'm raising a teenage girl, and I told her these exact words, like almost to the T. When I see her, like she's not feeling very positive, but I don't tell them to myself. So I just got like shaken by the words.
Yeah.
Because I direct myself. Wow. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. And just, to add one more little thing, they did a study for children, and which children were the ones that really took on a love for reading. And so they took different families and they observed families where the parents read to their children, families where there was lots of books in the house, and families where the parents enjoyed reading themselves and read often in front of their children. And you know what the result was there? I think you could probably guess that the children who ended up loving reading and picking up the habit of reading the most were the ones that saw it in their parents. It wasn't about the parent making that, like doing the effort for the child, but like really just, being the example. And Beth, that's what you said, right? Like being the example. And it's beautiful to see how all of this repeats. Yeah.
I was just going to say, I like the way you had us put our hand on our heart, because I think it connects with what she was saying. I'm sure she touches her daughter and says it comforts her. It's like touching yourself while you're trying to affirm something. It sort of grounds it in a kind of reality that might help wire it in there.
Yeah.
I like it.
Beautiful. Yeah, just like being able to offer words to ourselves, our own touch is very healing. And you wouldn't think it, right? Like it doesn't seem to make any sense, but it is very healing. I had a very, what's the word? A big moment, like a moment that stuck with me, like an epiphany? Yeah, like it really stuck with me. This one time, I went through a difficult time, and I was in therapy for a while. And after one particularly difficult session and working through a lot of stuff, I remember I was driving home, and I was sitting in my car, and I was at a red light, and one of my hands was just on my lap. The other one was on the steering wheel, but the other one was on my lap. And I don't know what it was that caused it. Like maybe it was just all the emotion that I had just worked through. But in this one instant, I became aware of the sensation of my hand on my leg, and at the same time, my leg under my hand. Does that make sense? So like feeling like distinctly. So I guess if you were to hold your own hand, being able to feel the holding and the being held all at once. And it created some sort of like energy loop for me in that moment. And this is going to sound silly, but I really got that I was always going to be there for me. That I was the one constant, right? Like no matter what happened, like I'm here for you. And I felt like I got you, like somebody has my back, right? It's just that energy loop gets closed. And so now, in times of stress or challenge, I know I can always hold my own hand. And it doesn't mean that I don't reach out and connect with other people or rely on others or ask for help, because I know the importance of that as well. But I know that I have something to offer me. And I have, that before I didn't know was there. And it's pretty awesome. So thank you. All right, back on track. Number 2, positive focus. Oh, all right. So I want you to imagine going to like a huge buffet. When I shared this concept with my sister, and she's like, oh, just say you're in Las Vegas, because people know how those buffets are. huge buffet, everything you can possibly imagine, and you've got your plate, and you're ready to go. But now I just want you to focus on everything you don't want to eat. Because they have everything, right? So they have foods you're not going to like as well. So go through the buffet and just focus. I don't want to eat that. That looks questionable. That looks gross. I'm not in the mood for that. And just like focus on, well, what would that experience be like? Anybody? Very dissatisfying. And like you would remain hungry. You would remain hungry and frustrated and just dissatisfied, totally. In the same way, we have a tendency sometimes to look around ourselves, look around at certain situations and be like, ew, I don't want that. Why is that person being that way? I don't want them to be that way. They should be some other way. And so when I say practice positive focus, what I'm saying is seek that which you do like. See if you can switch your attention to maybe it's just the small little details of things that really resonate for you. If you were to have your present situation just as it is, and now you're going to take a look at it as this buffet, and you're only going to pick out the things that you want, the things that you're going to enjoy, the things that you are anticipating, what would that be like? And number 3, and you've heard it before, gratitude. So, I'm sorry if you're sick of it, because we hear it a lot, but gratitude really is an amazing tool to orient ourselves towards a brighter future, and even more importantly, a brighter now. And here's where most people miss out. If you feel like you've tried this whole gratitude thing and it hasn't worked for you, here's why it's not working. You weren't taught to get specific. It would be really easy to make a laundry list of all the things, and here's going back to Catherine, going back to making a laundry list of all the things that we should feel grateful for, right? So when somebody asks you, what are you grateful for? Well, I'm grateful for my friends and my family and, my house, my home that I'm grateful for that, and I have a car, and I have a job that I like. And, it'd be really easy to just make that laundry list because we know how fortunate we are, and we know that other people have it much worse. But then we end up shooting all over ourselves, and that just feels really crappy, right? So stop doing that. Stop shooting on yourself, and instead get really honest. And when you ask yourself, what am I grateful for? I don't care if it's like the tiniest little something or just something easy, right? But focus on that and dive into the emotion of it. So, for example, for me, when I think, what am I grateful for? A really easy thing that pops into my head is my dog. So then I go on to the next question. Well, why? Why am I grateful for my dog? Well, I love that I always have somebody at home waiting for me. That when I arrive and I open the door, he is thrilled to see me. He wants to be with me all the time. I love that we get to go on walks and I get to experience the joy of his joy in sniffing around and barking at squirrels and, just being him. I love that I get to look at him and, my heart feels like it's going to burst because his face is so cute. And when I can really tap into that energy of why I'm grateful for my dog, that gets me in the zone. And it's so much easier and so much more real than if I'm like, oh, I'm grateful for my dog. Does that make sense? So let's try it out for a moment. Who has something, just a small thing that you can be grateful for right here, right now?
Kids.
Kids? Great. So why are you grateful for your kids?
They give me joy, happiness. They allow me to grow because I'm growing up with them as well. And they help me to be a kid and enjoy the world sometimes.
Beautiful. So that's awesome, and I really appreciate you participating. Is it okay if I take you a step further?
Sure.
So now, notice how that was that was beautiful, and it was really conceptual, right? Like, it's conceptual, we can understand it. It's big picture thinking. I want you to get like really specific, small, like tiny picture, like zoom in really close, right? So I want you to think of a very recent moment, maybe in the last day or in the last week, a moment that you shared with them and why you're grateful for that moment. What was happening?
Yeah, it just happened last night that my 3-year-old has ear infection and he's feeling very bad. But when I was massaging the ear and make it warm, he get a really warm hug, and I was just burst to cry because I feel that okay, he's really grateful to have me to help him, and it was the moment that I was really grateful and thank God to have him in my life.
Who here felt that? Yeah. When we get specific, it makes it real. Not only that, we get to experience it again. And now tell me like how important traffic is, right? How important the tailgater is, or the people in your way, Chad. Yeah, thank you so much. Beautiful example. So that's what I mean. Like when I'm saying get specific, get specific, get specific, bring it down, take it out of concept world and bring it down into real life. What have I experienced recently that can really ground me in that? All right. So consider that there's always something to be grateful for, right? It can be a really small thing, as I said. So, I'm imagining right now it's the end of the day and you've been sitting in chairs for, a good part of the day. This has been an awesome gathering because it's involved, more movement than I've had in other sorts of days like this. So that's great, but still, your butt might hurt from sitting the whole time. So maybe like what you're looking forward to right now and you're grateful for is the fact that the day's almost over and you're gonna be in your car soon and you can play your music and you can roll down the window and feel the wind in your face. Like, it doesn't matter what it is, but once you start connecting with that emotional state of something you're grateful for, something you're enjoying, something you can tangibly, physically feel, that'll get you headed in the right direction. So, research has concluded time and again that positivity and optimism are the way to go. And I think that just what's needed in order to be able to implement this in our lives is some self-awareness. Noticing that there's always a conversation going on in our heads about whatever is going on. And the more we can practice bringing self-compassion, a positive focus, and gratitude, the more we'll be able to stay on a productive, effective, and enjoyable path. We are not built with set traits that are unchangeable. So this whole concept of people being born an optimist or being born a pessimist, notice how that is one of the characteristics that people take on. Oh, I'm a realist. Like, I don't do that. I'm this, I'm that. We start taking on this mindset of being as if we were fixed objects. Like, that chair is brown, it has metal legs. I am an optimist and I like, to dance. Like, we are not set objects. We are dynamic beings, which means we are the possibility of anything. And we can be any way we choose. So it's not about being one thing or another, and that's unchangeable. It's about what do we want to practice? Who do we choose to be? So the choice is ultimately yours. And to be honest, I don't believe that there's a right way or a wrong way. What I have learned, though, is that I choose the fun way. I choose the way that will bring out the best in me, the way that will bring out my strength, my resilience, my perseverance, and the way that will bring me the most joy possible. And I hope you'd be willing to join me in that. Thank you. If there's any questions, well, actually, let's do a quick time check. I have no idea what time it is. How are we doing on time? Am I totally out of time?
Take a question.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? No? Okay. I would just like to then do one small plug. So, Elar Institute, we teach emotional intelligence, and right now we've got a series of classes. They're Connective Communication Basics, and basically it teaches the practice of communicating powerfully with ourselves, our loved ones, life in general, really like a framework for understanding our emotions and our needs and what it all means. So if you'd like more information about that, please see me afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Tisse. Everybody, give it up.